I guess I'll start. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Much, Science Coordinator at Santa Clara County Office of Education. And thanks for joining us for our webinar or vlog number 20, which is about Earth Day and the 50th anniversary. I'm here with...
my name is Olivia Santillan. I'm a coordinator of History, Social Science, and Civic Engagement.
And then we have Jenna Picata, who's also just helping us out. And Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Next slide. That's you, Olivia, I think.
Okay, so we want to welcome everyone. Thank you for coming today. And if in the chat box you could introduce yourself and include your position, where you work, and in 2 or 3 words, identify something you are thankful for today. Okay, Jen, let's go. We can go on to the next one.
All right.
Okay, so we are focusing on how to create cross-curricular lessons about Earth Day. And the 2 content areas are science and history, social science. And we created a choice board of lessons that we will go over with you at the end of this to show you what we created. And so tip number 1 for creating a cross-curricular lesson is to start with a main topic. So we knew the main topic we wanted to focus on was Earth Day, and we actually turned it into Earth Week. So we went to the history, and asked what started Earth Day, and try to find individuals or events. And then we looked at, okay, let's make connections to the natural world. Let's make connections to science. And then we went through and we agreed on which main focus to create the lesson on.
So one of the questions we want to ask you all while you're here is, what are some ways that you are including Earth Day activities in your lessons, in your distance learning lessons or lessons in general? If you could share that in the chat, that would be great. So the next step we took was making some decisions through these lenses. And as Olivia mentioned, the 2 lenses that we focused on were on geography and biology. And what we wanted to do was think about what those would emphasize, what kinds of resources there were that could be used in both areas, and whether or not there were some overlapping people or events, charts, maps, graphs that could be used. So we basically, as you mentioned, we kind of, when we share the choice board with you, you'll see that we kind of themed each day based on some of those lenses that we talked about. And we had a good time planning all that, and a long time planning all that, so we're still working on it. So thinking of that, and that we kind of chose geography and biology, what other content areas do you think could be incorporated into these types of lessons based around Earth Day? And again, you can share that in the chat since there's only 4 of us.
Well, I mean, I was
Or Jenna could say something,
yeah,
yes.
there are definitely a lot of math connections that are in there, right? So if you're taking a look at some of the data, then there's definitely a math application. And language arts, so Sandy's writing ELA in there, so obviously, like, you can have them write about, different experiences.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, we're getting some more people coming in. I get to admit them. I have the power now.
Yeah.
So welcome, our new folks who are just joining us.
So Jen, can you go on to the next slide?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the third tip for creating cross-curricular lessons is to focus on inquiry, literacy, and content. And so there are multiple cycles of inquiry that can be used. There are ones specific to history that are laid out in the C3 framework, for example, or in the history social science framework, as well as in NGSS. And so determining which inquiry cycle you want to use and maybe exploring inquiry. Focus on literacy, so using general literacy and meaning-making tools. And you can get support from your content frameworks, should have information about that. Another way to apply these general literacy and meaning-making tools is to partner with your ELD specialist and ask them if they have any resources or graphic organizers that they use, and then to focus on discipline-specific literacy skills. So for example, you know, with history, social science, things around determining cause and effect, or thinking about different perspectives, or continuity and change, or determining, you know, the context of a primary source. And then Jen, do you want to add some science discipline specific literacy skills?
Sure. A lot of things that we do with science would be looking at cross-cutting concepts, especially when we're thinking about cause and effect. We're looking at patterns, and then we get into, especially with the theme of Earth Day, we look at human impact on the environment, and almost every NGSS grade level has something that ties in that. And then we also, I forgot if you mentioned, Olivia, we have also the environmental principles and concepts that are embedded in all the frameworks now. Well, first of all, they're embedded in 3 for sure right now: history, social science, science, and health. But they will also be embedded in math and ELA in the future. And so this would be a really great way to tie in those, what are called EP and Cs, if you're not familiar with those. But we didn't really have a slide about that, but maybe another time. All right, so next slide.
Okay, so again, if you can just share your thoughts in the chat. How can you use inquiry to support students with learning about Earth Day? And what are some ways that you and your students can take action for Earth Day, even while sheltering in place?
So Sandy had written in the chat, you may also want to look into sources for questioning techniques. And she said QFT and others. I'm not familiar with QFT, so I don't know if either of you can explain that, or maybe Sandy.
Livy and I actually have done some work with QFT recently. And so it's basically a way to get students to ask questions about maybe a phenomenon or starting an inquiry process. And actually the students ask the questions and guide the learning. So which is really important with especially the new standards that we're working with in the frameworks. So it is a way to get students to also narrow down questions, because sometimes their questions might not be as meaty as you might like. So there's also, and there are ways to do that on in your distance learning to process, and we can probably, that might be a later topic for a webinar. But Olivia, have anything to add about QFT?
Yeah, you can find the protocol online. So if you Google QFT protocol, they have different PDFs, and it's a simple process. It's impactful. So it's very accessible.
And then the other thing that I see in the chat, Laura said, in the current context, we can look at how the atmosphere has changed since shelter in place. That's a really interesting one. I've seen things on LA and how things have changed a lot down there. And then she said as well, have them think about what needs to be done in the future to save the planet. And then Sandy says, ask students if they're seeing any differences in their own environment, especially since social distancing has started. And Laura says civic action also.
Yeah, so that actually was bringing up the changes in the environment since shelter in place. That was our, like in our very first conversations, Jen and I, an initial topic that came up that inspired us to make the decisions around the lessons. And so there is a lesson that where students will read an article, and there are different maps and images that they can look at and then think about, you know, what did they learn and what does that teach them about the power they have to impact the environment.
Yeah, I was going to also share that something that one of the resources I shared is about the Keeling curve, and which is the CO2 levels in the atmosphere. And the article talks about how if there will be an effect on CO2 levels in the future based on the fact that we're not, sorry, I've got to change, my battery's running low, sorry. There we go. Yeah, so in the future. And I think that was definitely a good starting off point for us also in thinking that way.
Yeah, because our goal was to keep it current so that we were addressing what was happening today so that students saw connections. Did you want to go to the
Next slide. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, guess that was
Okay.
it for that. Oh, the choice board. Yes, that's right. The choice board. So let me find it real quick. I got to stop the share though so I can find it because, you know. Let's see. Oh, man.
And for this choice board for everybody out there, we made the shortened link bit.ly/SCCOE vlog VLOG 20 notes. And I'm putting it in the chat for those of you who are in this Zoom right now. And then you'll have access to viewing it.
Right, so let me share my screen again. Just so you all know, there's a couple parts I still need to finish, but this is what it looks like so far. Wanted to make it look pretty as well, of course. So, Viola, do you want to talk about it first, Olivia, or do you want me to say something?
Sure. So as you can see, for each day of the week, students have choices: history, social science lesson, a science lesson, and then Jen, if you can scroll up a little bit, there are choices for taking action. So the third row is a live link where they can click on the icon and it gives them an idea that they can take action each day. And so we integrated that civics piece into everything. Jen, can you click on my lesson, Why Earth Day?
Yeah.
So the way we set this up, we did have secondary in mind, and we know that not everybody is secondary, but to take these concepts and ideas and adjust them for your grade level. And I would say the most intensive choices were with my lessons were Monday, and then as the week goes on, it gets a little bit lighter. But wanted to make it clear what the lesson was about, what the goals were, and then what the choices were for the lessons. And so there's introduction, and it's a video, and you can see there's a link to something called a reciprocal viewing journal. So that would be a focus on literacy and meaning making. And then connect to my life, and there's a map. And in every lesson I included a map because I wanted geography to be a main theme in these lessons. And then there's a journal called Connections to My Life Journal, and then an investigation into the history with the reflective journal, and then ways for the students to share their conclusions. So each lesson for history social science follows this format. So then the students don't get lost in trying to figure out what they need to do. They know each time they open up a lesson, it's going to look pretty much the same. And then Jen, did you want to explain?
Sure. So I try to format in a similar way. I'm going to show you the one that's for Monday. It's about our changing atmosphere. And so again, kind of thinking along the map theme and how geography plays into this. This is a lesson that actually comes from Exploratorium. It's from Science Snacks. So students are going to do some data analysis. So I gave them a couple of goals, told them a little bit about the resources, and then if they want to learn more about the Keeling curve, that information is there. And again, this is geared more towards secondary. I was hoping, you never know what materials students might have, but I kind of try to write it so that if they don't have all these things at home, they could still use markers and stickies and things like that. So I did do an actual investigation so that they could do a hands-on graph and kind of do an analysis of the graph. And then I also added in some reading. And so what I wanted them to also connect it to is what I mentioned earlier is an article about what the effects would be in the year or so on the Keeling curve. And then I also gave them extra reading. So I didn't want to give them too much reading just because they're going to do a hands-on activity, but I gave some extra kind of extra credit, or if they want to dive in more, because there are those students who want to learn more about something. So that's how I formatted my lessons, similar to that. And then I'll just quickly show you where the live links take you, if they work. And this is from the earthday.org website, which we also linked at the top of the choice board. And basically, students can go here, and we're suggesting that each day they kind of consider one of these choices. So again, this comes from earthday.org, and taking some action on plastics. And these are things they could do at home. They could read about it. They can kind of take some time to reflect. There's even a couple that are make a poster and put it in your window on Earth Day, those kinds of things. So this is we really took a lot from this site. We thought it was very useful. And go ahead.
Sorry, were you going to tell more about taking action?
No, you can if you want.
Okay, well, so I wanted to show a resource. If you could go to the lesson on Monday for History Social Science.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, this is the lesson that has the most sources. In each lesson, I had multiple sources, videos, articles, maps, images. In this one, Jen, can you click on the carbon map? It's under Connect to My Life, yeah. So this was a resource that I found that I thought was really neat in terms of maps, because it's interactive in a way that's very unique. And so if you look at the top, you can pick different types of information that you want to focus on. So Jen, go ahead and pick one. And then when you click on the topic, the sizes of the Earth, or the continents on the Earth, change, which is a reflection of the impact within that area. So like population, you can see Asia becomes larger. If you go to like emissions, for example, right, then it shifts. So I think historical is another one that's interesting to look at. And then people at risk. So I just thought it was I thought it was different. I thought it would be something that was really engaging for the students to interact with. And then if you click on the play button, there's a little bit of information about the map. If you click on the bottom right, information, this map, it takes you to another page where it gives background information on the project and how the map came to be. So this is just one example. Other maps that I included were Earth Day event maps, where you can actually register your Earth Day event. And I thought that would be engaging for the students, so they could see in real time where these Earth Day events are taking place and maybe be inspired to register. I told Jen we should have registered this on the Earth Day event map. Maybe we still can.
I think we still can, and then send the recording, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the choice board. One other thing that I started to do as I was I'm one that likes to pull together resources. I try to curate them as best I can, but sometimes that's hard. So I probably will separate this out into a separate document, but if we scroll, I'm going to scroll down and show you a little grid I made. So these were recently shared with me. So our neighborhood or neighboring county offices also do have some Earth Day resources. So I put live links there. The National Environmental Education Foundation has some really great Earth Day resources. Again, earthday.org, which we mentioned already. I don't think I live linked that one though. And then EcoRise, the EPA. And then I also linked in a couple more Earth Day hyperdocs, if you're familiar with hyperdocs and using those. I think one is more secondary, one's more elementary. So if you are an elementary teacher, you might want to use that. And then I also linked Walden West is kicking off this week, and I'm going to talk about it in a later webinar this week with Marie Bacher, is Nature Nuggets, which are some outdoor education types of things that are happening. So again, I'll separate that out as a separate document because the choice board's more for students. So I wanted to make sure that you guys all understood all that. And we do have some questions at the bottom for them to, the students to be reflective about. And then we also did add at the very last day, on the Friday, we just really want that to be an action day. So we did link this climate change action page called We Renew, which is really has a lot of good other choices they could be making or action steps they can take. So anything else we should say about the choice board?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody also uses the lessons or interacts with the resources and has any feedback or questions, we welcome it. We're interested in hearing your thoughts and how you use it, or how maybe you think we could add something to it to make it more user-friendly, especially for teaching online right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Jen, do you want to show our office hours? Sorry, Jenna.
Well, I just wanted to ask one question because it's in the chat, and Laura's asking, how can we tweet this out? Because this is a really great resource and you guys clearly put a lot of work into this. So we definitely want to share this and make sure. So what are your suggestions for us tweeting it out?
Give me another couple of hours to finish. And yes, I think that was my thought, is that Olivia and I and everyone else can tweet it out and send it to our networks and things like that. So yeah, I think that
we have the link on the SCCOE vlog site. So anyone could lift the link from that site and then share it on social media.
Yeah.
Is there a way for, hi everyone, is there
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Your Earth Day choice board? I'm thinking like this would be really cool to be able to take and share out, and that's more of what I was referring to. So could we extract this, or I don't know if the hot links probably wouldn't work if you did a screenshot.
No, so what we have is on the vlog site, instead of a notes page, we have the choice board linked.
Oh, okay. I didn't click on that one. Okay.
Yeah. So
perfect.
if you,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I actually borrowed this formatting from another, I think it was someone on Twitter, and then I actually did purchase the clip art. So the clip art's not free, but I mean, you can use it obviously, but I purchased it so I could use it. But because I liked it so much and I wanted to make it look pretty. But choice boards are really a nice way to go, I think, especially with distance learning. And I think we also kept in mind that we would probably also support our alt ed students with this. And we tried really hard to make sure that not everything was technologically driven, like things, there's some printables in there and things that if they don't have access to technology, they could also, you know, utilize, and the teacher could print this and print some things out. So
Yeah, we know that some people are working with packets, and so thinking about what can be printed as well.
You ladies did a nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, back to the slides. Sorry, now I'm all over the place again. I swear, like, do you see how many windows I have open up here? Oh my goodness. Okay, here. All right. Let's see. Oh, it's not working. Technological.
Oops. While Jen is getting the slide deck up, what she's going to show you is at the end of our slide presentation, we have 2 slides that give information about our office hours. And so we have office hours every day for the multilingual and humanities education from 3 to 3:30. And if there is somebody else who would be more of an expert to answer any of your questions, we would put you in contact with that person. And so on our slide deck, we have the Zoom for that. And then Jen has one. Jen, do you want to just talk through your office hours?
Sure. You guys can see my screen now, though. Can you see the slide?
Oh
It's
no,
still
we
shows a-
still see the choice board.
You just see the choice board? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might need to, if it's in a different window, maybe stop sharing and then.
Probably. Oh, yes. Here we go. See, I'm learning as we go as well. Okay. My office hours are actually only on once a week, on Wednesdays from 3 to 4 p.m. And yeah, so when I get the slide up, I'll show you what it looks like. There we go. Share, all these buttons to click. Okay, so there's the Mahi one, right? And here's mine. The Wednesdays from 3 to 4. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending and checking out our choice board. And we hope that you find it useful or find some pieces that are useful to you. And thanks to Jen for partnering on this and
Yeah.
busting out a lot of lessons in a short amount of time.
Trying, yes, almost done. And thanks, Olivia. It was fun working with you. We're gonna have to do that again soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.